The airport was a blur of fluorescent lights and hurried footsteps. But Ethan Carter's heart raced for one reason only. He was finally home. After 3 weeks in Seattle closing a deal that could save his struggling tech startup, he could almost taste the warmth of his husband Jamie's embrace. But as his taxi pulled into the sleepy streets of Willow Creek, Virginia, something felt wrong, not in his gut that no amount of exhaustion could explain. Ethan's phone buzzed with a single text from his sister. "Mia, you need to get to street. Mary's church. Now." No explanation, just urgency. His pulse quickened as the cab wound through the familiar oak-lined roads. Past the diner where he and Jamie had shared their first date. Past the park where they'd carved their initials into a tree. The church loomed ahead, its steeple piercing the twilight sky, and Ethan's breath caught. White ribbons adorned the entrance, and soft music drifted out, wedding music. He stumbled out of the cab, suitcase forgotten, and pushed through the heavy oak doors. The sight inside stopped him cold. Jamie, his husband of 5 years, with his kind brown eyes and nervous smile, stood at the altar in a crisp white suit. And beside him, holding his hand, was Caleb Monroe. Caleb, Ethan's ex-boyfriend from college. The man who'd shattered his heart a decade ago with lies and infidelity, now stood grinning like he'd won the lottery. The congregation turned, gasps rippling through the pews as Ethan's shadow fell across the aisle. "Ethan." Jamie's voice cracked, his face paling as if he'd seen a ghost. Caleb's smirk faltered, but only for a moment. Ethan's world tilted, the air thick with betrayal. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, his voice raw, echoing off the stained glass windows. The story of Ethan and Jamie had begun like a dream. 6 years ago, in a crowded Richmond coffee shop, Ethan had spilled his latte on Jamie's sketchbook, ruining a half-finished drawing of a willow tree. Jamie, a soft-spoken art teacher with a laugh like summer rain, hadn't been angry, just laughed, handed Ethan a napkin, and said, "Guess you owe me a new sketchbook." That moment sparked something neither could ignore. Within a year, they were married, building a life in Willow Creek, a small town that wasn't always kind to two men in love but had slowly warmed to their quiet devotion. Ethan was the dreamer, always chasing the next big idea for his tech company, while Jamie was the anchor, grounding him with his steady presence and late-night talks over cheap wine. They'd faced their share of challenges, whispers from neighbors, Ethan's long work trips, the financial strain of his startup, but their love had always felt unshakable. Until now. Caleb's return had been a shadow Ethan hadn't seen coming. They'd dated in college, back when Ethan was a naive computer science major and Caleb was the charming law student who seemed to have the world at his feet. But Caleb's charm hid a manipulative streak. He cheated, lied, and left Ethan broken, vowing never to trust again until Jamie came along. Caleb had vanished from their lives, or so Ethan thought. Yet here he was, standing at the altar with Jamie, as if the past 10 years meant nothing. "Ethan, I can explain," Jamie stammered, stepping forward, his hands trembling. The congregation murmured, some reaching for their phones, others leaning forward in their pews. Caleb raised a hand, his voice smooth as silk. "Ethan, you're making a scene. Maybe we should talk outside." "Talk?" Ethan's laugh was bitter, his eyes locked on Jamie. "You're marrying him. After everything we've built." His voice broke, and he hated how vulnerable it sounded. Jamie's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't move closer. The silence between them was deafening. The priest, a kindly older man named Father Daniels, cleared his throat. Perhaps we should pause the ceremony. No, Caleb interjected, his tone sharp. This is our day. Jamie. Don't let him ruin it. Ethan's fists clenched. Our day. The words cut deeper than any knife. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the weight of 100 staring eyes held him back. Mia appeared at his side, her hand on his arm. Ethan, let's go, she whispered, her voice urgent but gentle. You don't need to do this here. But Ethan couldn't move. He needed to hear it from Jamie. He needed to know why. Jamie, he said, softer now, pleading. Look at me. Tell me what's going on. Jamie's gaze met his, and for a moment, Ethan saw the man he loved, the man who'd kissed him goodnight every evening, who'd painted their living room walls a ridiculous shade of blue because it made Ethan smile. But then Jamie looked away, and Ethan's heart sank. I'm sorry, Jamie whispered, barely audible. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. The words were a punch to the chest. Ethan turned and stumbled out of the church, the cool evening air hitting his face like a slap. Mia followed, calling his name, but he couldn't stop. He needed to understand how his life had unraveled in a single moment. Back at their Housia cozy two-story, they'd spent years making their own. Ethan sat on the couch, staring at a photo of him and Jamie from their honeymoon in Key West. They were laughing, arms wrapped around each other, the ocean sparkling behind them. How had they gone from that to this? Mia brewed coffee in the kitchen, her presence a quiet comfort. He called me last week, she said finally, setting a mug in front of him. Said he was confused, that Caleb had shown up out of nowhere. I told him to talk to you, but, she trailed off, her eyes full of sympathy. Caleb, Ethan muttered, the name tasting like poison. Why didn't he tell me? Jamie had always been honest, even about the hard things. Or so Ethan thought. The betrayal stung worse than the shock. Jamie hadn't just hidden this. He'd planned a wedding. I don't know, Mia admitted. But you need to talk to him. Not Caleb. Jamie. She squeezed his shoulder. You two have something real. Don't let that snake ruin it. Ethan nodded, but his mind was a storm. Caleb had always known how to twist people's emotions, to make them doubt themselves. Had he manipulated Jamie? Or had Jamie chosen this? The uncertainty was torture. His phone buzzed. A text from Jamie. Can we talk? I'm at the park. Ethan's fingers hovered over the screen. Part of him wanted to ignore it, to let the pain fester. But he couldn't. He needed answers, even if they broke him. The park was quiet, the moon casting long shadows over the swings where he and Jamie had spent countless evenings. Jamie sat on a bench, still in his wedding suit, his face drawn. When he saw Ethan, he stood, his hands fidgeting. I didn't want you to see that, Jamie said, his voice thick with guilt. I swear, Ethan, I was going to tell you. Tell me what? Ethan's voice was sharp, but he couldn't help it. That you're leaving me for him. That you're throwing away everything we have. It's not that simple, Jamie said, tears spilling down his cheeks. Caleb, he came back a month ago. He said he'd changed, that he wanted to make things right. I didn't believe him at first, But he kept showing up, saying all the things I wanted to hear when we were younger. I got confused. Confused. Ethan's voice rose. Jamie, we're married. You don't get confused and plan a wedding with someone else. I know. Jamie cried, his voice breaking. I know I messed up. But you've been gone so much, Ethan. The business, the trips, I felt alone. And Caleb was there, reminding me of a time when things felt easier. Ethan's chest tightened. He'd known his long hours were hard on Jamie, but he'd thought they were in it together. So this is my fault? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. No, Jamie said quickly. It's mine. I should have talked to you. I should have been stronger. He stepped closer, his eyes searching Ethan's. I love you, Ethan. I never stopped. But I don't know if you can forgive me. Ethan wanted to reach for him, to pull him close and pretend this was all a nightmare. But the image of Jamie at the altar with Caleb burned in his mind. I don't know either, he said, his voice hollow. He turned and walked away, the weight of Jamie's words heavy on his shoulders. The next morning, Willow Creek buzzed with gossip. Ethan could feel the stares as he walked to the diner for coffee, his usual refuge now tainted by the town's whispers. Did you hear about the wedding? A woman muttered at the counter. Poor Ethan. Coming home to that. He gripped his mug tighter, the ceramic burning his palms, and left without finishing his drink. Back home, the house felt like a museum of their life together. Jamie's paintings on the walls, the bookshelf stuffed with their favorite novels, the kitchen table where they'd planned their future. Ethan couldn't stay there. He grabbed his keys and drove to Richmond, to the office of his startup, hoping work could drown out the chaos in his heart. His business partner, Sarah, noticed his distraction immediately. You look like hell, she said, leaning against his desk. What's going on? Ethan hesitated, then spilled everything the church. Jamie, Caleb. Sarah listened, her usual no-nonsense demeanor softening. You need to figure out what you want, she said. Not what Jamie wants, not what Caleb's scheming. But what did Ethan want? He wanted Jamie, the life they'd built, the promises they'd made. But he also wanted trust, and that felt shattered. He spent the day buried in code, trying to lose himself in algorithms. But Jamie's face haunted him. That evening, Mia called. Caleb's been seen at the bar, talking about you, she said. He's telling people you were never good enough for Jamie, that he's saving him. Ethan's blood boiled. Caleb's arrogance hadn't changed, but his audacity had grown. Ethan drove to the bar, a dive called Rusty's, where the neon lights flickered like his resolve. Caleb was there, holding court at a corner table, his laughter loud and grating. When he saw Ethan, his eyes gleamed with challenge. Well, look who's here, Caleb drawled, leaning back in his chair. Come to congratulate me. Ethan's fists clenched, but he kept his voice steady. What are you doing, Caleb? Why Jamie? Caleb shrugged, his smile infuriatingly casual. Jamie deserves better than a workaholic who's never around. I'm giving him what he needs: attention, love, a future. You don't love him, Ethan spat. You love winning. You always have. Caleb's smile didn't waver. Maybe. But Jamie chose me. What does that say about you? The words hit like a slap. But Ethan refused to let Caleb see him crumble. He left the bar, his mind racing. Caleb was playing a game, but Jamie wasn't a prize to be won. Ethan needed to know if Jamie's feelings for Caleb were real, or if Caleb had manipulated him into this mess. He found Jamie at the community center, where he taught art classes to kids. Jamie was cleaning paintbrushes, his movements slow, his eyes distant. When he saw Ethan, he froze. "I didn't expect you to come here," he said softly. "I didn't expect a lot of things," Ethan replied, his voice tight. "Tell me the truth, Jamie. Is this what you want?" "Caleb." Jamie set the brushes down, his hands shaking. "I don't know what I want, Ocean Gate. I thought I did, but then Caleb came back, and he made me feel like I was enough. Like I wasn't just the guy waiting for you to come home." Ethan's heart twisted. "You are enough," he said, his voice breaking. "You've always been enough." Jamie looked away, his eyes glistening. "I didn't feel like it. You were gone, Ethan. And Caleb was there, saying all the right things. I got lost in it." "Then why the wedding?" Ethan pressed. "Why go that far?" Jamie sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It wasn't supposed to be real. Caleb suggested it as a symbolic gesture, a way to move forward. I didn't think you'd be back so soon. I was going to tell you, I swear." Ethan wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at him. "Did you ever love me?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Jamie's eyes met his, fierce and raw. "I never stopped loving you, but I stopped believing you needed me." The confession hung between them, heavy and unresolved. Ethan left the community center, his mind a tangle of anger, love, and confusion. He needed time, but time felt like a luxury he didn't have. Days passed, and Ethan avoided Jamie, staying at Mia's apartment in town. The distance didn't dull the pain, it sharpened it. He replayed Jamie's words, trying to separate truth from excuse. Had Jamie really felt unloved? Or was Caleb's influence stronger than Ethan feared? He threw himself into work, but even that was crumbling. The Seattle deal had fallen through, leaving his startup on the brink. Sarah urged him to fight for it, but Ethan's focus was split. He couldn't fix his company until he fixed his heart. One evening, Mia dragged him to a town festival, hoping to lift his spirits. The streets were alive with music, food stalls, and laughter, but Ethan felt like an outsider. Then he saw Jamie across the crowd, helping kids paint murals. Jamie's smile was genuine, his joy in teaching infectious. Ethan's chest Ikeda missed that smile. He approached, and Jamie's face lit up, then dimmed with uncertainty. "Can we talk?" Jamie asked. Ethan nodded, and they found a quiet corner near a cotton candy stand. "I ended things with Caleb," Jamie said, his voice steady but soft. "It was a mistake. I see that now." Ethan's heart leaped, but he held back. "Why should I believe you?" Jamie reached into his pocket and pulled out a small sketchbook one Ethan had spilled coffee on years ago. "I kept this," he said. "It's where we started. I don't want to lose that, Ethan. I don't want to lose us." Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to believe Jamie, but trust was a fragile thing. "I need time," he said finally. "I need to know this won't happen again." Jamie nodded, his eyes wet. "I'll wait. As long as it takes." Ethan spent weeks wrestling with his feelings. He met with Sarah to salvage the startup, securing a new investor by sheer determination. But his personal life remained a storm. He saw Caleb around town, always with that smug grin. But Jamie was true to his word: no contact. One night, Ethan found an old letter Jamie had written him during their first year together, tucked in a drawer. It spoke of love, of building a life together, of weathering any storm. Tears fell as Ethan read it, the words reigniting something he'd buried. He invited Jamie to the house. They sat on the porch, the night air cool and quiet. "I've been thinking," Ethan began, "about us, about what we had. I don't want to lose it either." Jamie's eyes lit with hope. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we try again," Ethan said. "But we do it right: counseling, honesty, no secrets. I love you, Jamie. I always will." They embraced, tears mingling, the weight of the past lifting just enough to let hope breathe. Months later, Ethan and Jamie stood in their backyard, surrounded by friends and family. They renewed their vows in a simple ceremony. No grand church, just them and their truth. Jamie's hand trembled in Ethan's, but his smile was steady. "I choose you," Jamie said, his voice clear. "Always." Ethan's startup thrived, and Willow Creek embraced them fully, their love a quiet testament to resilience. Caleb faded from their lives, his schemes no match for their bond. As they danced under string lights, Ethan knew they'd weathered the storm, not perfect, but whole. Their story wasn't just about love. It was about forgiveness, about choosing each other despite the pain. It was about coming home, not to a place, but to a person. And in that, they found their forever.